Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Heartful Beings. I am here with Janet, and God, it's been a week, girl. It's been a month. I've gone through a lot of ups and downs this week. It is March 2025. I know there's some stuff going on in astrology and the cosmos that's actually been validating me in some of the crazy feelings that I've been feeling and things that I've been pushing through. And so, where we're going to kind of talk about today is emotional regulation and emotions really being this segue to magic, to manifestation, to creating what it is that we actually want. So, basically a week ago, I'm just minding my business and I can feel this like, I don't know how to explain it. It's more like a rumbling. Like I could feel off. I was off, right? I was irritated, irritable, frustrated, right? But I wasn't allowing myself to even say those words or acknowledge that that's where I was at. So what do? I just keep going, doing my thing, taking care of the family, taking care of the things. And I had an eruption this week. There was one day I saw you, girl, and I was like, I've had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in the last like 6 hours. And it was like a Tuesday, right? It was like a Monday. It was really, you know, old me would have been like, came out of the blue, but now I really know more about what this is going on. There's other evidence in my life that I've been avoiding, that I haven't been giving my time to address, that I've been coming up with every excuse in the book. I don't have time to deal with this, don't have time to deal with this. Um, so yeah, I'm going to hand this over to you, girl, because I know you've been going through a lot of fires. And really, I wanted to burn everything to the ground and start over. And I've never felt so wanting to just say, you know what, sell it all, get rid of it all, let's move again. I don't even care. It'll just be easier, right? Just to like start over, buy new things.
Is that the name of this episode? Burn it to the ground.
Maybe because here's the card, guys, fire. But how do we actually take all this pain, the emotional roller coaster, the wanting to literally burn it all to the ground and transmute it into the beauty? And so I think that's where we're at today, is where I'm at today, is getting over that line. And you've been helping me. So I'm, passing this along to you, girl.
Well, I'm full on in it right now. If I start crying during our episode, it won't be my first time.
Me too, girl. I mean, it's just like one thing after another right now. It's a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, and I'm going to get into this because it's been a theme for at least my last 10 or 15, 10 to maybe 10, 11 clients or so. The theme's been the same. Oh my God, I don't like where I am. I don't want to be here anymore. Make it stop. How do I get over
Yes.
this? How do I stop this? How do I end it? How do I get away from it?
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm telling you that those desires, those wants of how do I get away from it? How do I end it? How do I stop this? Are what will keep you in it longer
Right.
because you get into resistance of the emotions. So
Yes.
I'm going to talk about it from a psychologist like perspective. Well, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a psychologist, but from a teacher perspective, from a parental perspective, there's this theme that we're always taught of, well, we have to teach the child how to emotionally regulate. They
Mm-hmm.
have to know how to emotionally regulate. So I want you to think about what that means. It means we have an emotion coming up for the child, and we are children, right? As well
Mm-hmm.
as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And we want them to control it, keep it at bay.
Yeah.
It cannot be too high. It cannot be too. I want you to stay right here at
Yeah,
a
it makes no sense.
superficial, surface level place.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the whole freaking reason that the emotion came in to begin with was to communicate information to you where you are not in alignment with you.
Girl, my whole head's tingling because I never even thought about the word or the phrase emotional regulation, right? And the resistance for me, what I've been realizing is trying to fix, understand, intellectualize all what I'm feeling, right? Instead of just giving myself the
Yeah.
space to feel. And y'all, I don't know if you'll know this. I think I've mentioned this about myself. I love a good dance party by myself. Put on the headphones if the baby's sleeping, or blare the music by myself in the house and move your body in the weirdest of ways. Just like to move. And so when I was having this moment, this bubbling, this eruption, I let myself get weird and freaky in the living room with my earbuds on. If my neighbors saw me, they were like, good Lord, what's happening in there? But it felt so good to move it. I'm hitting the couch at some point, like really expressing it. And it took about 2 days of like doing this because it was some big grieving, guys. I mean, out of the blue, it felt like this grieving, this sadness, these waves of
Mm-hmm.
anger and frustration of where I'm at with my body. Like my body, I'm doing all these things, but my body's not cooperating, right? 'Cause I'm trying to control.
Yeah.
So it's all resistance. All of everywhere I've been leading up to
Yeah.
these emotions was resistance. So I'm
Absolutely.
so glad you're bringing this up. It makes more
Yeah.
sense for me.
And I agree. There's a grieving going on. I would almost tell you that, look, I'm getting sad already. It's as we're
Mhm.
talking about it, I'm going through a mourning.
Yeah.
It is a mourning of an old way of being. It is a mourning of an old way of perceiving. It is a mourning of wanting things to be different that I cannot change
Hmm.
because those things are outside of me, and knowing the thing that gives me comfort, that helps me accept the mourning with more acceptance and the pain of it, is that I have me,
Hmm.
which has never felt important to me before now.
Yeah, we're in the habit of reaching outside of ourselves
Mm-hmm.
for the friend, the companion, and all of that is very important in relationships.
Oh, yeah.
But what you've been showing me recently, and what my diabetes diagnosis is showing me, and what my external world is showing me, is how disconnected I have been with the body and with myself. And so I'm doing this work and going, and doing all the things which are important, they have their place, but I've been avoiding the whole point of being
Oh,
in this
yeah.
avatar,
Yeah. And let me tell you something. It's fascinating that you're talking about it, the external, and then you refer to the avatar, because that's what I'm going through too. Of course, we
Hmm.
are.
Yeah, I know.
Cue the external. God then says, cue the avatar.
I mean, and then all at once, right? Where we want to burn it to the ground.
Yeah. And then I'm here to remind everybody we're like involved in this conspiracy with God.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
part creator of this too. So
Yes.
I can tell you there were so many different corners of my home life, even the desktop of my computer, okay, where I'm like, start it over. Well, maybe we should just get a new computer. Like, this
Girl,
is
I'm there with my phone. I'm there with my car. Like everything is breaking. Everything
I
is acting out.
I know I'll get a new email 4 emails later. Okay.
You do have a lot of emails.
And a couple of them, there are all kinds of stuff happening with them too right now. But here's what's fascinating is that the universe will use the external components first to show you how much is unresolved. But we get so used to getting comfortable with being uncomfortable that we don't even address this pile or that dynamic or this relationship or this thing that bothers me or that political view that triggers me or that lady down the street or this neighbor. Like my
Hmm.
boss, my finances, we're not looking at it to to see that it's showing us the same thing.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
then, like I said, we cue the external, and then I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting. Well, now let me make you get it, Janet.
It
This
gets
is
bigger,
uh
intense.
huh. Gets bigger, it gets intense, and then it gets so much so, and it's been so suppressed that now it's in the body. So I was
Yeah.
showing Milena yesterday in an authentic moment of let me be vulnerable with you. She was complaining. I think we were both complaining, more
Yeah.
like a frustrated vent, really, is what it felt
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
um, of illness in the body. And I told her, look at my shins. They're getting there. They're almost healed. They have a really unique scale like buildup. It almost looks like snake skin coming off of
Hmm.
parts of my skin is shedding,
Hmm.
which is very indicative of what I'm going through right now. But
Hmm.
what's fascinating is I watch it correlate with my emotional stance and balanced mind. When I'm balanced and I've processed and emitted emotion, it calms down. But when I have it building up and bubbling to the surface, oh my gosh, Megan
Hmm.
Flair. So I
Yeah.
had 5 bombs blow up in my face yesterday, many areas of life. And this is what happened. I told the universe, all right, I'm going to tend to this one, this one, this one, 3. I have 2 more that I'm ready to address. But listen, my feelings feel like they need to come up right now, but I've committed to a couple of things for this evening.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to get these done. This would be important to me. This is a way to nourish me, knocking
Yeah.
these two things out that I want to do. Bring this back when I finish tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't say, cool, the feeling stopped. Cool, the feeling ended. Cool, oh, thank God I can put my energy somewhere else. I
Mm-hmm.
literally finished with my accountant, got home, walked in the door, got in bed, and just start flood of waterworks.
Yeah.
A flood of waterworks.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is we usually want it to stop, but it was so important for me to get
To
angry,
feel. Mm-hmm.
for me to allow it to release,
Yeah.
for me to process. The amount of toxins we release through tears is unbelievable.
It really is. There's like literally a chemical in tears that brings a peacefulness after you've allowed it to like be expressed, come out of the body.
Yes.
100%.
And so I allowed that. And then I wanted to feel like I was in a nest. So I went and got in the couch and used all the pillows to nurture and
Mm-hmm.
nest myself to go to sleep. And I woke up so much better. There's still more release
Yeah.
happening today,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not fighting it. I wasn't,
Right.
right? I've been in this somewhat melancholic place since this morning.
And what I want to also share, because it's coming to my attention again right now, is that when I was in the dance party and releasing and moving the body and crying and hitting my couch with my hit fist, like just being frustrated, y'all, I was getting downloads in those
Mhm.
moments. And I was like, oh, that pattern makes sense. This is what I've been doing. Look what I've created. This is how it's connected without me trying to do a damn thing. Right. It was
Mhm.
just that level of resistance, I think I go into, which we all go into, because it is hard to feel that pain or to feel that to get to that place of surrender. It's just very difficult, right?
Mhm.
We're taught to be in control and do all of this. But in that moment of the release, it's like I opened the dam and allowed the stuff to come in and allowed the what I needed to know when I needed to know it to come in, right?
Yeah.
And so going to this card with the Ace of Wands, it's like, this is where I'm at right now. And you in the community, if you're in the thick of it right now and like you just don't know which way is up, right? This is what you have to look forward to when you get to the other side of it. But you can't get to the other side of it unless you express it, unless you like find a way to release the pressure, from that dam. And guys, y'all, it's really hard to let yourself get to that place, right?
Oh,
It's so
absolutely.
hard.
Absolutely. Because when you think about what were the conditions that put you in this dynamic to begin with, right?
Yeah.
They're mostly based, I mean, just think about how much society says that we are to value and prioritize emotional regulation. We're not
Mm-hmm.
told to feel it,
Mm-mm.
reveal it, express it,
And as a woman, if you
process it.
if you do that, then you're crazy, or you're a lunatic, and then comes this all these labels, right, of people who do
Yeah.
express it, right? And then I
Yes.
look at some of my friends who are artists, and like don't necessarily fit in the parameters of where I came from in society, right? And there
Mm-hmm.
is this freedom of expression. It's like you don't have to just, I mean, imagine if we had that just not in the artists and the creatives, if we had that everywhere, right? This release of the pressure, taking off the mask, Um, that's I think our goal of where humanity is heading to is just this more authentic way of feeling, being.
Yeah. And here's the thing, if we're going there as a collective society, it means that someone else's feelings or opinions or political views or religious viewpoints or perceptions or ways of being don't threaten who you are.
Mm-hmm. That's the
Or,
thing.
uh-huh,
Mm-hmm.
they don't threaten who you are.
Yeah.
See, when I sometimes have kids come in and they have been through it, a lot of intuitives come here, a lot of sensitive, highly sensitive kids come to my classroom. And a mom might send them in crying. I literally will just sit there and make absolute love and peace with their emotion at that moment.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, that's what you do in therapy with children, giving them the space
Absolutely.
to express what it is they're expressing.
Absolutely. And they don't even have to say anything sometimes.
No, yeah,
It's about just being okay with exactly where they are,
yeah,
which stems from learning how to be okay with exactly where we are.
mm-hmm.
So a lot of it, I feel like, has felt like anxiety for several months. And then Yesterday, last night, it felt like a full on depression.
Yeah.
And depression is absolutely an accumulated, suppressed dynamic of emotions that haven't been processed fully.
Yeah.
And mine has very much been about how many moments of life have you allowed the external reality to dictate what you are, what you aren't going to do, how you're going to show
Mhm.
up, how you're not going to show up, how you're going to say it, how you're not going to say it, what you're, what you're going to eat, what you're not going to eat. I mean, it's crazy how much external influence there is on us in the way that we live.
Mhm. I'm glad you brought up the depression too, because I did have a little bit of that this week. And it's been a while since I really felt that hopelessness, helplessness. Again, like you're saying, letting the external dictate who I am, worth, right? I really
Mm-hmm.
went, y'all, when I say, I mean, I went low. And I had to feel all of that to realize how much um I put myself there. I put these impossible limitations on myself where I was struggling to meet them, right? Or like to meet these expectations became limitations, right?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
couldn't get there each day. And this was like for weeks, probably months, building up, guys, to get to this place of like this horrible sadness that I was feeling. But in that, I was realizing that very important component of like, I'm doing that to myself. I'm beating myself up. I'm putting this, you know, expectation that I'm just not there yet. And that's okay. That's not to say I don't get there, right? I've been trying to do like dealing with the diabetes and my numbers in a very holistic manner. But then I was not being holistic about it because I was ignoring the medication that actually could help me get there. Right. And eventually I know I won't need the medication, but I was in resistance. And the
Yeah.
resistance was making me sicker and it was making me feel more terrible. And I even had a mom recent or just yesterday just came up to me. We're just passing. She's like, "Hey, how are you been?" "I'm horrible. I'm just so tired. I'm just like this and that." And I was like, "I know. It's a lot of us right now. Just tend to yourself, tend to your needs because we want to get into this place of fixing, but the fixing can also be what is making us sicker
Yeah.
because we're not actually acknowledging, like you were saying, of what is in the external, what
Yeah.
needs tending, not
What needs
fixing,
tending, nourishing,
not
acknowledgement,
fixing.
connection. Yeah, it's not about fixing.
The connection was big for me too because I think it was also Brene Brown. I listened to her recently and she said something that depression is like unrealized creativity and creation when we're not creating and being expressive. That's what
Yeah,
depression really, can be seen as. And that
absolutely.
hit. I was like, "Oh yeah, I've
Oh,
definitely
yeah,
not been creating."
absolutely. And then how do you get there to begin with, right? How does the
Yeah.
depression start to evolve to begin with? I was talking to my husband about that in the car this morning because I had been seeing all of these beautiful animals and turkey vultures everywhere, casting these massive shadows, when they're high in the
Yes.
air
I love
and
that.
the shadow is massive. And I thought, wow, what a dichotomy. And I had this epiphany because my mentor is always telling me, Janet, go look at the animals. Go watch the animals. And yeah, they know their needs are met. Things are
Yeah.
fostered for them. They're not
They're
worried
not
about it.
yeah, they don't go around with like anxiety all the time.
Yeah. And then I thought, why don't they have the all this anxiety and depression that we're aware of, right? Because we know that
Right.
animals feel today
Yeah.
that we're aware of. And it just like clicked. Oh, it clicked. Words. We have words that we either build castles and monuments with, or we build light and limitless with,
Yeah.
or we tear ourselves down with,
Tear others down, tear ourselves
or
down, tear the
tears other
world
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fascinating the power being the species that we know of that can communicate with such, clear dialect and meaning and semantics built into these sounds that we make with our mouths. It's the meaning that we tie to our words.
Yeah. And it would
That,
almost be simpler if we didn't have words,
in a
right?
way, right? What other way would we find to give meaning to things as this evolving species?
Yeah.
So I started realizing that the depression component that I was experiencing last night really started from me looking at external problems. This is a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a problem. And that's a problem. And that's a problem, which then made me realize, wait, I remember feeling like I was a problem
Oh yeah.
as a
Yeah.
child. I
I was always in the
constantly
way.
was told I was a problem child. Or
Mm-hmm.
you, or my mom still does it today. She'll be like, you don't even know what Janet was like when she was young.
I know. I know.
And I just think it's so funny because, in a way, I think that was more me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've kind of lost those aspects of it. So as it relates to my skin, it is very much in my face. As it relates to my avatar, very much in
Mm-hmm.
my face about how do you relationship to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the skin, it's almost like I want to separate myself from things with the
Yeah.
skin. Hmm.
It's funny you say that too, because earlier I was wearing clothes and it felt weird on my body. And I was like, am I even in my body right now? Nope, I wasn't. It felt like we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. Like, who am I now? What is this clothes? Like, who was the girl that wore these clothes? None of
Yeah.
it is resonating. So I have two huge bags in my closet right now because I've just been purging. But the clothes I was wearing today just felt like they weren't on me. It was, I can't, I don't know. It was like when you did this from the skin, that's what I felt today. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
oh, I'm literally in the cocoon right now. This is why it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
This is why I'm like, ugh. That's all I can say is because I'm in a transformational time, and at least now I have this awareness where um I can address it. I see it. I can feel it. Sure, I'm still judging myself here and there, and working through it, but it's not as heavy, I want to say. It doesn't feel so um in the past, if I felt this way, literally I wouldn't get out of bed sometimes, I would just let everything around me crumble. I can't explain it. I'm
I think
moving
you're explaining
through
it
it.
really well.
Okay, good. Because it feels
Yeah.
weird right now. Even the words coming out my mouth don't even feel right. But yeah, because I'm realizing I'm in this cocoon. I'm in this place of like figuring out what I'm turning into. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a strange place because
So
it's that
strange.
same component of wanting to figure stuff out because it's foreign to us, it's new
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many pieces of it that we want to explore.
Yeah.
But I'm learning, and I'm not there yet, but I'm learning that we can just be a little bit more patient with it.
Oh, patience. That came in. I'm glad you said that word to me today too. That's come in so many times. And I've been told even by you are a patient person for being married to my brother, right? Or you're a patient person with these, my mom, you're patient with these kids, but I'm not patient with myself. I'm
No,
not
agreed.
patient. I can be patient for the world to figure things out. But when it comes
Yeah.
to me, I expect these unrealistic expectations to be met at this unrealistic time frame, you
Oh,
know?
same.
And I'm like, ugh, that doesn't
Absolutely.
make
I
sense.
have to ask myself frequently, what is it exactly that you think you haven't done yet?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, like what is it exactly that was supposed to be that you should have done? Like stop
Yeah.
shooting on yourself. But what are these things that it's supposed to look like? And it's crazy because it's again related to the words that we hear, read, see in the external reality that gives us these ideas.
Yeah.
And to be honest, sometimes there is an inner knowing and calling. And sometimes I've abused with that too.
Right. I'm
Uh-huh.
glad you said that too, because what came through was back when we were talking about resistance. The resistance is a lot of times of what we think something should be like. So then we miss everything that's happening that's actually giving us what we wanted. But because it doesn't look like what we think it should look like, we've missed it.
Oh
We
yeah.
don't even see it. We don't recognize it. And that's been a very big one out of this week of emotional, roller coaster was I was not paying attention to how much I had actually created and manifested. And um, it's not just, I mean, it's like a deeper level than just the gratitude, right? I was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
actually did it. I just still
Yeah.
feel like I haven't done it because it doesn't look like how I thought it should.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because I was just talking to someone about this the other day about it's different from the gratitude. It's about like a real, more like a pragmatic.
Mm-hmm.
specifically detailed list to, if you sit down
Yeah.
and reflect how many things have been meant for you. So like I'll have
Yeah.
a very authentic, vulnerable share. When I first started waiting tables, I could not believe it because I was going to start making more money. My mom and I were so poor. I don't remember the last time we had eaten meat, and I am
Wow.
such a carnivore. And I remember I was picking up steak plates that were practically not touched. Maybe had one piece or two pieces of steak of a fillet or ribeye. Like that was it. And I couldn't believe we were going to throw it away. And I had not eaten meat in I don't know how long, maybe like a year,
Wow.
like a good chunk of red meat. And
Mm-hmm.
and I totally took that steak and I ate it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fascinating for me because I had such shame and vulnerable ideas around it, like that were completely about labeling it as wrong. I could have gotten fired for doing it. You're not supposed to do it. And for me, it just felt like a waste
Yeah.
to throw it away. And I
100%.
totally ate that thing. And it was years later, I was on a call with one of my old mentors, Denise. And she said, Janet, don't you even see how that was a manifestation of you getting the very thing you had been asking the universe for
Wow.
years,
Mm-hmm.
for a
Yeah,
couple
you were
years.
working at a steakhouse.
And I love steak. Like today, look at these things. I have fangs, guys, okay? And maybe there's a world where I don't eat meat, maybe and I have been. I have a world where it's been in and out of my life, but that's what I wanted and that's what I got. But so many weird judgments around it. So I took that moment and started listing out every time a need was met, every time money paid for an excursion or a
Mm-hmm.
fun moment or whatever it may have been. I started really listing out beyond just a generic gratitude, but every single time something like money had given me something.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Talk about how you don't think that's how it shows up. And it showed
No.
up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And it showed up and I didn't even pay for it.
Yeah.
And Bill Murrah, if you're still out there somewhere, I did it, honey. Can't
I
fire me
know.
today.
That's what I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. It's all these things that I've been missing that I wasn't paying attention to. That like, no, it's here. It arrived. It arrived like 2 months ago. It
Yeah.
arrived, and I was like, oh wow. So that's a great thing I might do after this is just start writing down all of these needs that have been met over and over and over again. And y'all, when I was in my ups and downs, one of the big things that came up to me was like feeling lonely, feeling unsupported. And it's not that I've moved to a new place and I don't know as many people, because I recognize this feeling of being home with a baby, even when my firstborn, and I was in New Orleans, I was with all my family was around, all of my oldest besties were around, and I still felt alone. And I was like, wow, it doesn't matter where you go, where you move, the unresolved stuff will follow.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like, oh my God, I feel so alone. I feel so, and I was like, because I'm pushing people away, or I'm not making myself go out there and do these things that I like have these great ideas at 9 o'clock at night when I'm going to bed. I'm like, I'm going to do that tomorrow. And then tomorrow hits. I'm like, I don't feel like it. I'm doing it. And it's okay to not feel like it. Right. But I'm doing that. And y'all, I kid you not, when I finally gave into it and I'm feeling all the things and I'm doing the weird dancing and all of this, and I'm sweaty and I'm just on the couch. And I was like, let me just watch something on Netflix before the baby wakes up. Ron texts me, my husband, saying, hey, are you okay? I just feel like I need to check in on you. Friend down the street was like, hey, you want to go pick up the girls together? Sure. My mom, all of a sudden, all these people start reaching out to me because the universe was like, you're not alone. You're not alone. That's what you think you're alone. And it's all coming to me. If they were showing me like I'm not alone. I have created relationships. I am doing the thing, but it's the mind that I'm putting myself in this trap. I'm putting myself in this situation that I feel this or I think this. And I want to pull up this card again because I've noticed this before on this card, but it's literally shooting out at me. She's got like a net over her head, like a fishing net, but where the fire is, there is no net. So this is where I'm realizing I gotta let the flame come out. I gotta let the fire, the passion, the emotions, right? I gotta let all of that be exposed because this card is also super magical about allowing your magic and your fire and your creativity and new ideas and inspiration to come through. But if I let the net choke me, then I'm not going anywhere, right? I'm going to have this illusion that I'm stuck because it's really an
Dang.
illusion. So
Yeah.
that was a whole bunch of channeled information that I just realized was for me and also for obviously all of you guys and you, Janet, but that came in hot and heavy. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's it.
fascinating because it's like, it's interesting because it's making me want. I was looking at the netting, kind of like the little, with where the netting's over crossing
Yeah.
and they meet and they connect.
Mm-hmm.
It was reminding me of how our neurotransmitters and our
Yeah.
synapse function
Yes.
and how some of them would benefit from being burned.
Yeah. Because you have to
Yeah.
create new ones to learn new information, right? And
Yeah.
then what you don't use just goes away over time,
Yeah.
right?
And they
100%. I love
served
that.
purpose for a moment, right? Like they
Totally.
absolutely had function and protector parts and all these pieces for their time frame. But
Sure.
it will start, and I remember my old mentor Tony J. Salimi used to say, when you start to grow and you're starting to realize the new reality and you step more into it, it feels uncomfortable in a way when you bring the old psychology with it.
That's my cocooning weird phase right now. Thank you for putting words into it because I don't know how else to express this uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
I
And
love that.
the old psychology will rewrite as we get there, but there's more conscious ways for us to also rewrite the old psychology.
Yeah.
And the conscious way is in its own perfect time, like
Yeah.
exactly what you said. You'll know when you need to know it.
Yeah. When you need to know it.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, not only will you know when you need to know, but when you have a knowing that you have choices
Mm-hmm.
and that you can step into either new choices, new perspectives, new options. It's never just really one.
Mm-mm.
We have more, but we don't see them when we're spiraling, when we're keeping yeah,
Mm-hmm. The
so much of it inside.
spiraling.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Soul. Remember the movie
Oh,
Soul?
yeah, I do.
Remember when I think it's 22?
I think so.
She's like the problem soul that no one can seem to mentor correctly and she can't get back to earth because she's just like, burn it all and screw it all and I don't
Yeah.
belong here. Well, they just showed me at one part of the movie where she does give in to that she's not worthy, that she feels like she can't do anything right. Her soul turns into this like, do you remember it's like a blob of like lines and she's
Oh, yeah.
spiraling and she's in the dark place and like that's where I felt I was at earlier this week, where I was so in my feels. I was so in my thoughts, guys. And I know y'all can relate to this. I literally didn't see a way out. I was just like, I hate it all. And I allowed myself to feel it. And now I'm in this cocooning. And Janet, the fact that you're bringing this component for me now to think about of what old psychology I can't bring with me, that's where I'm going to go into this next week. Like what parts of me need to the burn, what part of the netting needs to go that I don't need to bring with me. There's an attachment because it's comfortable or we know it. And where
Yeah.
I'm going is scary because I really don't know where I'm going.
Well, it sounds to me like we'll find out in the next day or two. And let's have a burn party at my house. Come and burn it with me.
Yeah, I do feel like there's a fire. I mean, I am a fire sign. I actually am quite comfortable in the fire. But it's been, trying to figure out or not figure out where I'm going and being patient with it and using all of these tools that I help clients with that I obviously sometimes just don't do with myself, right?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
And so that's where
And that's why we have our own mentors too, because we
100%.
have our own blind spots too. We have
Yeah, because
our
when
own,
you're in that place, you can't see out,
yeah,
you can, but I just know now that if I reach for support, calling you or somebody else, like I can get out of there a little faster and I can get out of there my hand held because sometimes you
yeah,
need that, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. And lately, and I'll give you an example if you need a little tool, guys, to know if you're there. If your conversation sounds like this, oh my gosh, my husband's not getting it. He's not seeing me, understanding what I'm getting at. Why isn't he moving?
Oh,
How
I
is he
like
still
this.
stuck here? How can that possibly be a problem? What are we going to do next? Doesn't he get it? Oh my gosh, we have young kids. Okay.
Was that me last year?
If it sounds like that, and you heard how many words and how fast and how spirally it was,
And there was a
and
lot of
then
you, them.
uh-huh, and the only counter attempt to stop that energy is, I don't want this.
Hmm.
Do you see how one is so much louder than the other? This is why I teach so much about polarity and dichotomy.
And I also want to point out your voice inflection, because when
Yeah.
we're in a more of a manic, it's a little higher pitched than when we
Oh
like
yeah.
stand in. I don't want that. Your voice goes down.
Yeah. I don't want it.
Hmm.
But what we're not saying is, what can I do differently to change
Hmm.
it?
Hmm.
Does this, how much is this is like my reptile brain, my amygdala hijacking the show versus maybe there's maybe there's something I'm not seeing, or what is this spiral side showing me about how I'm functioning on the inside? There's
Hmm.
like 1,000 different prompts to go into when it comes to balancing this, but sometimes all we have to do is put on the music and dance to stop this.
Yeah. And that's what stopping that cyclical mind, especially, I'm by myself a lot with the kids, and like I don't get a lot of adult interaction some days. And so then the mind gets hijacked and it just
Mm-hmm.
goes and goes and goes. And so now that I'm becoming more conscious of like, okay, whoa, where have I been for the last hour? Let me go do this or get outside, or
Oh
it
yeah.
helps stop that spiral. And then we can allow the stuff to come in, because otherwise when you're in
Yes.
the spiral there's no room for anyone
There's
telling
no
you
way.
anything or any guide helping you with anything. It's
And
you're
sometimes the
busy.
spiral, yeah. And sometimes that busy spiral is like an addiction too, right? Like I was even telling my husband that yesterday. I'm like,
Yes.
treat your life like slot machines, okay? You have X amount of coins to go to the casino. And wherever you put those coins, the spiral, you're
Yeah.
actually, it's a higher probability that you're going to hit the jackpot here of more spiral of that, whatever's
Mm,
spewing out of there. But if you
interest.
look more consciously at these other pieces as choices or options, as opposed to just continuing to say, this is a problem and that's a problem and problem slot machine. I'm going
Yeah.
to put in my coins, you're going to spit out more problems.
Yeah.
The probability is that you'll live over here longer.
Yeah.
So sometimes having to stop ourselves, calling a friend, doing
Hmm.
a self nurturing act,
Hmm.
something that prioritizes you and calms this down. I bake a lot of cookies, guys. You have no idea.
I take a lot of baths and a lot of outdoor walks these days. Like that is my tending to self
Yeah. But
when I can get it.
we have choices to help guide ourselves and our hearts in a different direction.
Yeah. And this is interesting too, is coming through because sometimes, we're content where we're at, right? Everything
Yeah.
is good. There's nothing to change. We're speaking at those times of when the feelings come up, depression feels like it's coming out of left field, right? All of a sudden
Mhm.
you feel anxious and you're like, well, man, my life's been really good. Because there's this component too, right? Where then I'm like, not even allowing myself to acknowledge or feel that because everything is going well.
Yeah.
There's
Hmm.
that part too,
Yeah.
And so now I'm learning that those are the good times too to do some of this work, because everything is not crashing and burning.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just as important to relish in it,
Yeah.
right?
So
Because I
the
was, yeah,
go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
like I think even with ancestral work, we're like, oh my gosh, my ancestors did, like, it's again polarized, bad, bad, this, that was heavy, that was a lot, da, da, da. But then, like, my ancestors knew how to play.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And they
Yeah.
could cook,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
They could hold conversation.
Yeah.
There's so many things that even there
Yeah.
we can look at and also relish in the good stuff that we have too.
Yeah. God, my ancestors were adventurous, traveled a lot, moved from place to place a lot. Like they were only really, I think, even in Cuba for like one generation, but two generations before that, there were other places. So I'm starting to see some of those parts of me that I'm allowing myself to be expressed.
Mhm.
But yeah, guys, so it's like, we want to burn things to the ground. We focus on the negative. We focus on the things when it's terrible. But even when it's good and we get these feelings that are coming up, it's a great barometer, right? Of like where we're at. Because even in those times where everything is good and you have just a little bit, even learning how to address it then will help for when things are burning to the ground. And
Yes.
because then you have the experience and the tools, and you've already rewired part of your brain synapses and done something different, right? So that when things
Hmm.
are burning to the ground, you have more of a confidence in like, wait, I can handle this. I know now that this is just, a reflection of what's within. I know now I can call in the support. I know now that I'm not alone, and that's
Yeah.
what's been building for me, and it's beautiful,
And that it's like just a universal law of being here. And
Yeah.
it's the other side of our coin as a being,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because we're much more complex than I have anxiety and depression
Mm-hmm.
only. That's not really
I
how it
know.
is.
And then I feel, guys, and if you're out there and you've had this label and you've been dealing with depression your whole life or anxiety your whole life, like we don't have to live in that label, but it
Hmm.
is going to take work. It is going to take making new choices. It is going to take showing up for yourself. And if you're in that place, find the support, because I know so many people who've just carried that label, carried that huge suitcase year after year after year,
Yeah.
right? And if our
And
bodies do repair themselves and can have the ability to heal that quickly, our brains can rewire, create new synapses, create new connections,
yes,
you
but it
know?
also requires some conscious effort to know that you
Yeah.
can seek your help. You can, there's
Yeah.
so many different modalities
Yeah.
that can help. And I'm even
Yeah.
saying, like, medication may be, like we talked about earlier, it may
Yeah.
be a stepping stone or where you're going to
100%.
be for a while. And that's okay too.
Totally okay. Please. Like we got to use all, like that's was my like come to Jesus moment, was like I want to do things holistically, but I'm not using all the resources available to me,
Hmm.
right? And finding what works for me right now. My schedule is super tight. I don't have a lot of time that I can squeeze in for self-care. I do it when I can and I squeeze it in, and I know I'm going to work towards that and make bigger steps to giving myself more time. But until then, I could use the support of the medication. I can use the support of doing these different things, right? And to get my body feeling right. Um, and that's where it is for all of you guys, no matter where you're at, like using what you've got, because I know a lot of us can want to burn things to the ground. And sometimes it does need to happen, right? Sometimes, yeah, you know what? This is not even me anymore, this life, and I'm going to go do something. But when we're doing it consciously, right? Because I used to burn things to the ground unconsciously, and I would definitely leave a trail of like destruction of where I came from. But now I'm doing it in a more conscious effort, taking into account what's better for me, always what's better for me.
Oh, I love that. Taking into account what's better for me.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful motto, honey. How do we
Yeah.
get that sticker printed?
We need to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what I've been trying to show up every day, because whatever is good for mom is good for the whole family. We know that.
Yes, I second that.
Yeah. But I want
And
that to be
huh?
instilled in my kids too.
If you go back to earlier episodes, I think there's an episode where I tell you guys that my boyfriend at the time, now husband, labeled me the Punisher.
That's funny. Well, guys, this was a great episode. I'm glad we could share our experiences and everything we've been going through this week, because I know it relates to you guys out there. So, if you have any ideas for future episodes or want to get in touch, just hit us up on our social media or our website. There's a place you can ask questions. And we'll see you guys next time.
Love you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.